any newspaper stand. It sells for only 5 cedis, or visit the insidenewsonline.com to read these and more stories. There is a famous saying about development in China: to get rich, build roads first. This indicates the vital role of infrastructure construction in economic development. China's infrastructure was still weak 30 years ago. When I was young, traveling from Beijing to my hometown, Nanjing, a distance of around 1,000 kilometers, took a whole day by train. But nowadays, with the development of China's high-speed rail technology, the fastest train journey takes just 3.5 hours. China's economy has also leaped forward alongside the progress in transportation technology. In the past, mountain residents in China seeking medical care had to trek through hills to reach towns. Today, the Village Connectivity Project has built roads to village doorsteps, while the Low-Altitude Economies Rural Outreach Strategy enables drone delivery of medicines. The story goes on to say that Chinese people rarely use cash in daily life and don't even need to carry their wallets or bank cards. They just need to take their cell phones when getting out of home. With palm print recognition and facial recognition, contactless payments becoming widespread, greatly facilitating daily life in clothing, food, housing, and transportation. African countries have huge potential for development in terms of infrastructure construction. When I worked in South Africa as a diplomat, traveling to another African country required transit even through Europe. I came to Ghana last August and I found that the 150-kilometer drive from Accra to Cape Coast in Ghana often takes 3 hours due to poor road conditions. Although East and West Africa are on trade has to rely on maritime or air transport due to the lack of road connections, significantly increasing transportation costs and slowing down both cargo trade and human exchanges. This is a long story. If I decide to read the entirety of it, I would spend lots of time on it. But let me go straight to Honorable Inusa for saying it clearly. This is something that African countries should, emulate.
Well, it's not only emulating that, but first of all, let me say good morning to our cherished viewers, Comrade Kose Pratt, my brother Philip London, and your good self. And to say that Thursdays mornings are always, mornings that we have a duty to perform, and to be here is always humbling, and satisfactory. The infrastructure has always been known to be the key driver from Europe to India through the Atlantic Ocean. What was the infrastructure? The infrastructure was seaworthy boats, and the sea itself was the platform on which the discovery was made. That somebody could sail from Europe using the Atlantic, circumnavigate Africa into India. What did it do for Indians? It opened up India. It opened up India because at that time, it was the Silk Road that was the only means of getting to Europe, that they had to move through many countries. Now, and they used camels and horses. Now, camels and horses could only take just a few. Of the goods, services, and products that were available in India to Europe. But when the sea route was discovered, it made room for the transportation of these products in large volumes to Europe. What did it do? It created prosperity for India and also created prosperity for Europe. That's what he did. How did he create that prosperity? Now, Indian products like spices were eaten in the king's court. They were not available to the ordinary man. Indian products like spices were eaten in the king's court. They were not available to the ordinary man. And so all those delicacies, the things that were from Europe. Now, when they say Vasco da Gama discovered the sea route to India. So when the sea route was discovered, and they created an opportunity to transport huge volumes of goods to Europe, Indian farmers who hitherto did not have markets for their produce now had markets. So they could produce more. And to produce more, you needed to employ more people. And when you employed more people, you created prosperity, you created wealth. And then it got to Europe. There was a market. Now, because there was a market, the prices of the goods and services now became cheaper because the goods were now available. It was no longer confined to the nobility. It was available even for the common man. So spices became cheap in Europe. That's why we now have spices in restaurants and all those places. Initially, they could only be in the king's courts. So you see how infrastructure is prosperity. And let's come back to Ghana. Because when I became road minister, I always decried the development in the Upper West region, where tomatoes and oranges could be rotten somewhere in the Ashanti region, but could not get to the Upper West region because the road was terribly bad. And vehicles did not want to ply that road. So whereas farmers were producing tomatoes, you remember Franjo? Mm-hmm. Tomatoes in huge quantities. Those tomatoes could only come down south, but could not go up because the roads were bad. Now, if the roads were good, the farmers will be able, and people will come, middlemen will come buy the tomatoes and transport them. But even if middlemen came, they would not find vehicles to transport because the vehicles, the cost of repairs outweighed whatever they will charge. So when we fixed the road, tomatoes and oranges became cheap in the Upper West region. And so you can think of the Eastern Corridor Road reduces transportation from the northern part of Ghana moving through Yeji or Yape will reduce. And when consumption of fuel reduces, it translates into prosperity for vehicle owners. That is the model China is. And that is why when you look at China, it has put infrastructure at the head of its development trajectory. That it is even building roads through mountains, making sure that they bring China closer. You see, like the story says, when you were traveling from Beijing to Nanjing by train, it took a whole day. The fact that they have improved upon infrastructure, road infrastructure and rail infrastructure, it now takes less than a day to get there. 3 hours. 3 hours to get there. Yeah. So productivity will increase, of course, because if you were using 24 hours to travel, you now use 3 hours. Okay, 21 hours is available for you, and the 21 hours you take off the time that you use to sleep, and the rest is for productivity. So you see, the little wonder that China is developing in leaps and bounds. Little wonder that China is trying to rediscover and remake the Silk Road. Little wonder that China, well, today when you go to China, you'll be amazed. Their roads are finely done, manicured, flowers abutting the roads, clean roads. I mean, You go to China and you are climbing a 120-story building and you are in an escalator. It takes you by seconds to the top. All that I've said, and the amount of energy infrastructure available. You need energy to be able to do all these things. The amount of energy infrastructure. So I think that African countries and developing countries must emulate the development trajectory of the Chinese people. Chinese people understand that the way to promote the development of your country is to look at infrastructure. The infrastructure makes it possible to move goods and services from places where they are abundant to places where they are in short supply. And by moving them, you make life comfortable for everybody. China itself, in the period that it was developing, was promoting an export-led development strategy. So it was going out looking for resources to come back to China. And today, the middle class in China has grown big. You go to China and the number of people who are driving BMWs, Mercedes-Benz, these high-end vehicles are many. China is leading the world in the development of electric vehicles, the BYDs. So clearly. But what makes it possible for China to develop at that rate is that China has successfully dealt with corruption. It's a radical way to deal with corruption in China. If you are found to have corrupted yourself in office, your sentence might be very drastic and draconian. Sometimes they hang people or imprison them for life. Because you can't steal from the people. When you steal from the people, you retard their development. Can you imagine all the corruptions that we are talking about and the dissipation and reckless dissipation of public resources in this country? What that would have done in terms of providing quality education, in terms of providing good roads, in terms of providing good hospitals, in terms of, can you just imagine, water? So that is why you don't compromise on people who have dissipated resources that are meant to provide public goods. So if in China, an official is caught siphoning state resources that was meant to be used to develop a road, that official will regret ever considering that option. And that's how you deal with corruption. Because corruption robs the society of the provision of public goods and converts what is public to private ownership. And then even the people who convert public goods for private ownership, they then struggle with me and you, with people, to benefit from those little private goods that are there. And that is totally unacceptable. So that is one thing China has done. Yes, they suffered condemnation from the international bodies, particularly those aligned to the West, on what they considered as violation of human rights. But inherent in the condemnation is the ideological stance. So ideology underpins the treatment of China by the West. The West thinks that China's position and trajectory and worldview doesn't align with Western values. And so if we're assessing how the West is looking at China, you must factor in that ideological stance that the West maintains, which is not shared by China. The second thing China has successfully done is that they don't compromise on quality. You know, if you have been scanning world news, in particular if you have been entering the social media, you see that roads and bridges that were once upon a time impossible to be constructed are now being constructed in China. And China is leading the world by far. And those constructions on the sea and on the water bodies linking villages and cutting the time for travel must be done with quality in mind to reduce the risk of collapse. Because they are risky undertakings. And because they are risky undertakings, you must ensure that the quality of the work is guaranteed. So two things: China treats corruption seriously, and two, they do not compromise on quality. And if we want to emulate as a developing country the development trajectory of China, we must treat corruption with contempt and people who are corrupt contemptuously. And we must also ensure that our contractors who deliver infrastructure, whether it's housing, whether it is roads, whether it's construction of harbor, whatever, if they are citizens of the country or if they are foreign contractors, we must not compromise quality. And we do not compromise quality when we ensure that the money that has been voted for the construction of such infrastructure goes into the construction and not into private pockets. Okay. So it is linked. Compromising quality and promoting corruption are linked. Because when the contractor or the delivery of the service or deliverer of the service is compromised in such a way as to siphon some of the resources that is meant to deliver that service, or
cheaper materials.
Cheaper materials, because the contractor will have to get profit. So we must deal decisively with corruption to ensure that quality of projects that are executed in this country can serve many people. I live in the same area with Comrade. The road was done just in the about a year ago in the Kwabinya area. That road is no more. It's no more. That money that was used for the road has gone down the drain just a year ago. How long can we continue doing that? That every year or every other year you have to look for money to go and reconstruct the road just because of corruption.
Thank you very much. Let me now come to Mr. Philip Langdon.
Well, thank you, Bless, and good morning. Good morning to my good friend and Comrade Chrissy. We're talking about the issues of China and its development and how it's impacting on Africa. A few decades ago, 4 decades plus ago, China was considered by the rest of the world as a developing, struggling country. Yes, even in those days, China had advanced in certain areas in terms of nuclear technology and all that. But as a country, China was considered, especially even in the West, and the West has always tried to dominate the information narrative, especially when it comes to this part of the world. So China was projected as a poor, backward, underdeveloped country. What also combined it was the fact that the political system in China went against or was not aligned with what the West prescribed as the proper democratic and political process. So China was, as it were, shunned as a backward country. The Chinese people did not fight. They embraced that. They accepted that, well, this is your opinion about us. We don't mind. We are going to deal with it. And the Chinese took a determined effort, so their Central Communist Party, to, as it were, realign, reset, reorganize themselves, and prove to the world. Today, we are where we are. China, like a group of the Honorable Minister has explained, their road infrastructure, and there's a policy to open up that vast country with road network, rail network. In certain areas where there was, there were certain areas of China vast without much population. They took it upon themselves to open up and start modern settlements. That's why I'm happy to hear that there are plans to open new settlements in the Afan Plains area to reduce the congestion in areas like Accra and Kumasi, and open up the country and speed up our development. It is things like this that China did. And China did it as a conscientious national policy and program that the people of China were made to buy into, and everybody played his own part in achieving that goal. When they were building their roads, they would look well into the future. Unlike a lot of what we do. They were a poor country, just like us. But when they are putting up their roads, they don't do 2-lane. They do 6-lane. They are looking way into the future. Because even the road infrastructure that has been laid out opens a lot of opportunities and a lot of development. While doing this, they also focus on agriculture, boosting agriculture. And as they were doing all these things, they didn't just do it just for the sake of doing it, but there was a conscientious effort to ensure that there was constant improvement in the systems and methodologies that were used in all these processes. So today, the Chinese have developed technology where in road construction, they are even using some agricultural wastes as raw materials to reduce cost and improve the wear of new roads being constructed. And with all these things coming up, the Chinese have also extended their hand to Africa to help us, partner with us, to help us also move out of our own situation. Because the Chinese recognize that the problems of Africa is very similar to the kind of problems that they also had so many decades ago. The difference was the commitment, determination, and leadership. Leadership. Leaders who would be focused, who would know that this is the plan, this is what we intend to do, get the people together, get the people to go along and pursue it. And when people buy into such a thinking, you get them, there's faster pace of development. So what the Chinese are doing, we should not just look at it purely in terms of the infrastructure that they are helping us to develop. Like some of the road works we are doing, like in Ghana, the various projects that the Chinese have been instrumental in assisting us to develop. But we should be looking beyond that as to how we can also learn from those technologies and their own processes, the discipline that they have in their countries. The fight on corruption isn't just something that was wished that happened. There was a program. Yes, they have stringent penalties that are supposed to be a major disincentive to anybody to attempt to even consider corruption. Because people see the signs. people see top officials bearing the brunt of the penalties of corruption. So if people see that all these people are paying the consequences of corruption, why would anybody want to be encouraged? But if we have a system where people brazenly display corruption and are involved in corrupt practices, some corrupt practices that are actually publicized and everybody is aware, and at least people can go out there and try and defend themselves and try and actually pretend as though they haven't done anything wrong and justify their situations, we are not helping ourselves. So the lessons of the Chinese, these are some of the things that we have to learn. Some African countries, Ethiopia, the East African countries, have benefited a lot in terms of Chinese development and infrastructure and things like that, and various Chinese programs that were extended towards them. But the other complement, the kind of leadership that should have complemented some of these things, that will fight corruption, that will get the citizenry to also play their part in complementing some of these development projects to accelerate development, has not happened. And that is where leadership fails, or the failure of leadership comes in. So yes, if China had initiated all these things all those years, but they didn't have the kind of leadership that they've had, China would not be where it is today. It would not be where it is today at all. But the leadership was focused. It got the people together on board. And of course, one thing we have to accept in this country is that, yes, the kind of political system we have a ruling government and an opposition. What we do traditionally is that whatever the ruling government says, the opposition says no. When the ruling government says yes, the opposition government says no. And while the ruling government is trying to win people to go along with these ways, the opposition is saying no. And this has been the trend all along. We have to get to a point where the leadership, at any material time, can come out with these policies and programs that will be such that it will be so convincing and so inspiring to the electorate that no matter what any person opposing it says, the people will say, no, this is what we think we want to follow. And that is where the proper development and proper acceleration will take place. So, the development from, that China is laying out to Africa, these are the kind of things that we have to focus. We have to focus because, history tells us, I mean, like we are seeing today, the Chinese, they're not just interested in just infrastructure. They are making constant efforts to improve. They are trying to even get ahead. Like the reference was made to electric vehicles. The Chinese started working on electric vehicles and developing the technology when nobody seemed to be interested. They have now developed it and refined it in such a way that they are now the leaders of the world. There are areas that we also have comparative advantage. In terms of simple, ICT, I mean, we can also advance there. In the 60s, Ghana was leading the pace in so many things across the world. The Far Eastern countries were learning from us. Even the Chinese were learning from certain things from us. So we also have to simply accept where we are now, find out where our strengths are, and simply, with proper governmental policy guideline and leadership, direction, pursue these things and advance as a country. This is what will help us to get the full benefit of the kind of support that the Chinese are giving us. It's not just the material issues, but at the end of the day, it boils down on we as a people, starting from our leadership, getting all of us, leadership at various levels, to buy into it and move along and put these things in place, I mean, the agriculture. The Chinese do not do the same thing over and over again. There's a policy. What we're doing 10 years ago, by now, we should be doing it better. It's a national policy. But we are still breaking our cocoa pods spreading it on the same mats that we have spread them on over the last 50 years. We have the University of Science and Technology. We have the BRRI, Building and Road Research Institute. If you go there, the technologies they have advanced and developed, and some of them are sitting on shelves. And even at the university campuses, you see various things that have been done, but it's not coming out. Yesterday, a friend of mine were just having a chat, and we talked about. He was saying that we all grew up in Kanda, 441 area, and he was saying that on the Kanda Highway this year, he's noticed that there are so many cows on sale. Yes, every year around this time, during the approaching Idul Adha, the merchants bring their cattle and sheep and sell. But this year, it looks like there are a lot more. Nearly the entire length of the Kanda Highway. It used to be just that section close to the mosque area there. But now it's virtually from getting close to Gold House all the way right down. And the cows are huge this time. So I said, hey, what is going and for me, what was significant was that at least this time we see, and I say this was all due, better look. I only mean this for research. How can't we commercialize this? How can't we? So these are lessons that are there for us to learn from. Yes, it's good for us to admire Chinese and do what they appreciate what they are doing for us, but it's for us also to do for ourselves. We have the capacity, we have demonstrated it, but we have not moved it to the next level. This is what leadership has to do. This is what makes a difference between one leader and the other. This is what has to happen. So I believe that while we discuss these matters, it should be a reflection on we ourselves to seriously learn from the lessons of the Chinese, because they started just like we did. They are where we were. They were where we are not too long ago, and they've moved themselves to where they are with the same level of determination and proper policies and stuff like that. We can also get there.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Comrade Pratt.
Well, first is to acknowledge that what we are discussing is an article authored by the ambassador of China to Ghana and published in the Insight newspaper of today. Now that is very significant. You hardly come across ambassadors and diplomats who are engaged in healthy communication with members of the public in the countries where they represent, their own governments and so on. And I've said it before, that this ambassador is doing extraordinary work in the promotion of Ghana-Africa-China relations. Now, what is he writing about first? For accelerated development in Africa. Essentially, that is what he's writing about. And I've come to believe that China offers opportunity which no other country offers to the African people. One of the most significant things about what China offers is that it comes with no strings attached. So if you decide that your country wants to develop within the framework of a socialist economy and so on, the Chinese have no problem with you. If you decide that your country is going to embark on implementing a real liberal agenda, the Chinese are not going to say, don't do it, and so on. Okay? So that gives us the opportunity to develop our countries on the basis of our own set priorities and within the framework of political arrangements that we think are necessary for us. The Chinese have no conditions about whether you are running a multi-party system or you are running whatever. That's your decision to make. So this is an important aspect of Chinese cooperation with Africa. Now the second aspect has to do with the fact that they offer us terms which we cannot get from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. You know, they're so liberal. They don't seek to profit out of this, you know, assistance that they give us and so on. What they seek to do is to help Africa break its chains, chains which were imposed in the past through the transatlantic slave trade, through classical colonialism, and today's neo-colonialism. They want us to break away, you know, they want to assist us based on our own decisions to break away, to break these chains of enslavement. Now, Bless, I've made this point many times over, and I'm going to make it again today. Look at national infrastructure in all of the African countries. And if you look at the national infrastructure in all African countries, we cannot develop if we maintain the infrastructure we have today. Look at the railway lines. All of the railway lines start from centers of exploitation of our wealth and end up in the ports. That's our infrastructure. Now, after independence, we need to change this infrastructure in order to move our raw materials to centers of production, centers of refinement, not outside Africa, but within Africa. We need to build an infrastructure which gives meaning to the resolution which was adopted in 1945 by the Pan-African Congress, which insisted that Africans should own their resources and exploit these resources for their own benefit. You understand? So this is a challenge that we face. Now, how does Chinese assistance help us? You will find the answer in the Belt and Road Initiative from China. The Belt and Road Initiative, advantage of this Belt and Road, you know, initiative, it gives us this huge opportunity and so on. Now, again, my two colleagues have discussed what China is today. Today, China has become a super industrial nation. It is industrialized in ways which no country has done before. I mean, the rate of development of science, of technology, and so on in China is amazing. I mean, America is struggling to cope with that level of development. Now, given that level of development, for those of us who insist that industrialization is the way forward for Africa, we must also insist that China is an example worthy of emulation, that China has offers to make in the development of science and technology, which no other country in the world can make. And that's, you understand? Geographically, China is placed in Asia. It doesn't have the geographical conditions which will enable it to provide everything it needs. Okay. So given that factor, China has to engage in international exchange. And we can take advantage of China's need to engage in international exchange and develop trading partnerships with China. China is a huge market for our exports, and we should have tremendous assistance in fighting the notions of African inferiority, which found expression, for example, in the institution of apartheid in South Africa and so on. So China has always been a friend of the African people. And I think it's important for us to deepen this friendship. Now, for those of us in Ghana, this is a very important point. Given the fact that our first leader, Osatefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, developed very special relations with Zhou Enlai, who was the Prime Minister of China. And in fact, the level of friendship, brotherliness between Zhou Enlai and Nkrumah helped a great deal, you know, in paving the path for China-Africa cooperation and so on. And I think that we have a lot of opportunities, you know, which we can exploit for our own benefit and perhaps it's important to congratulate the Chinese ambassador for his efforts in promoting this relationship. I mean, these editorial pieces he has been writing has been very, very educative. Very, very, very educative. And the one which is published in the Insight of today is a classic example of what this Chinese ambassador is doing in Ghana and in Africa.
Thank you very much. Move away from China, we come back to Ghana. There has been a 1 Ghana cedi imposition on fuel or petroleum products. Some people are not happy about it. I'll straight away go to Honorable Yunusa Hussaini, of course, because it is his government, it is his party in power. The opposition, and Dr. Baumia has come out to say that you vehemently opposed e-levy only for you to inflict something which is worse than e-levy on the Ghanaian people. But that conversation has also been had as to what we have to do really to defray that nearly $4 billion energy sector debts that we have incurred over the years as a country. Your thoughts?
Well, so first of all, let's all understand that the energy sector recovery levy, which has been amended to raise the contribution of petroleum products to the energy sector recovery levy to 1 cedi, is not an e-levy. It's a consumption-based tax. E-levy taxed everybody who sent money via mobile phone. It didn't differentiate between those who had and those who didn't have. So it's a consumption-based tax. 2, when a country faces a problem in the nature of the problems that we are facing, you can't continue doing what you have been doing to solve those problems. That is, running to the Ministry of Finance to cut the money, to get money by reducing expenditure in certain areas to be able to solve the problem in the energy sector. What is required is extreme sacrifice to deal with the rot in the energy sector, largely precipitated or created by the outgone government, the MPP, and put it on a very sound microeconomic stability with fiscal prudence to be able to deal with that problem. And many nations, I've read a lot of, I'm a student of history, many nations who have been confronted with dire situations like this have had to make tremendous sacrifices. I always go back to the case of Finland. When Finland came out of its war with Russia, with the USSR, the people of Finland were the country was so devastated that the people decided that their gold trunklets and gold earrings and gold, they had to give it to the state, for the state to recover from the level of deprivation and want that the state had found itself in. There was a tremendous sense of sacrifice and patriotism to be able to do that. Now we are confronted, and this is not the first time we have been confronted with the energy sector problems. The energy sector itself, and I am pleased to say that I was part of the architects of the energy sector recovery levy. And my contribution to that levy was how to get the road fund moved from a second generation institution to a third generation institution, where it could have its own money plan its budget for road maintenance. And I'm happy to say that when I sent a memo to Cabinet, Cabinet approved the memo, and the amount that was to be raised through fuel consumption, and that was at that time to bring us into the road fund an amount of 120 million Ghana cedis every month. The road fund is now in the debt unlike before. Osler, when the MPP came in, what the first major attack on Osler was to securitize, was to use it, the Osler fund, to collateralize it. And that's why we have no money. I mean, there was going to be a regular flow of money into the Osler account for the purposes of energy sector recovery levy. KOKU had issued bonds to be able to deal with it. But John Mama said, let Ghanaians, let all of us contribute towards the energy sector recovery. And just getting in money. We will collateralize it and made it impossible for us to use the money for the recovery process. And we are back to the same position. Yes, taxes have always been a problem when they are imposed. Even in the days of Jesus Christ, you remember his exhortations to the Romans, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Because when the people were resisting the payment of taxes, look what happened. In the tax wars, taxes have always been a problem. But it requires tremendous sacrifice and display of patriotism to see that there is a problem that we ought to deal with. I've heard people say 1 cedi is just simply too much. But the 1 cedi has been pegged, taking into consideration the level of debt and what we have to do to get ourselves off the debt. And so, and people have argued that it's regressive. But I say no. When you look at, that's why I say it's almost like a consumption tax. If you have a vehicle, you buy the content of your vehicle, I mean what you want into your vehicle, you pay less. If you are somebody who buys refined fuel in large volumes, you pay more. So your ability to buy in large volumes is dictated by your status and the economic status, let me put it that way. And so the rich will pay more and the poor will pay less. So that makes it somehow non-regressive. And clearly, if you don't buy fuel, if you don't buy any petroleum product, you don't pay the levy.
People argue that would translate into a hike in transportation fares.
No. So first of all, it's 1 cedi. And if the 1 cedi is going to come, I mean, the minister has said that it won't result in any increase of petroleum prices. That's what the minister says. We are yet to see how that is worked out. But even if it results in an increase, in transportation fares, that will be shared among all the people who will occupy a bus at a given time. Yes, it will be a pass-through effect. But that will be shared amongst all the people who will be riding in the bus at the same time. And so I think that, yes, it's a difficult decision. It's a difficult decision to raise taxes now when we had condemned nuisance taxes. I agree, it's difficult. But this tax is largely because of the way that we have treated USLA. When USLA was put in place, there was a general understanding that the continuous flow of resources into the USLA account will retire the debt burden of the energy sector. Let me hasten to say that even though Ghanaians are prepared to sacrifice, and in these early days, there's a lot of goodwill for government, and even though many people are raising voices, you find that those voices are muted because we appreciate the enormity of the problem of the Ministry of Energy and the energy sector. But that doesn't mean that the increase in tax must compensate for the inefficiencies in the energy sector, both administrative and otherwise, the production or the operation of the institutions. For instance, it should not be the case that the inability of the ECG to collect taxes, which has resulted in revenue, which has resulted in the huge debt burden of the ECG, is going to be compensated by the people of Ghana by paying for more. And the more they pay, the more they are unable to collect their taxes, the less their ability to pay for the supplies from the energy producers, the IPPs. And so, whilst, yes, it's difficult, all of us have vehicles. I am a commercial farmer, I buy fuel in huge quantities. So we'll make those sacrifices. But that doesn't mean that ECG must not be held accountable. All actors and stakeholders in the energy sector, in the value chain, must not be tweaked in such a way that they become efficient in the delivery of their services. So while, yes, the minister has taken this step, which is a difficult but necessary step, he should also time his eyes or put his eyes on making the energy sector very efficient in the delivery. The good thing is that because the CD has gained value against the dollar, whereas we're buying fuel at the beginning of the year at 16 cedis a liter. 16 cedis a liter. Today we are buying it at 12 cedis a liter. Diesel at 12 cedis and petrol at 11 cedis. On average. Now it means that there have been a savings of between 4 and 5 cedis, which is going to the pockets of Ghanaians. This was the same thinking that agitated our minds when we established ESLA. Fuel prices were reducing. At that point, it was not the CD that was increasing in value, but the prices of fuel was falling on the international market. And they offered Ghana an opportunity to reduce fuel prices. We reduced the fuel prices to such an extent that we felt that Ghanaians were benefiting from the reduction in fuel prices. And if it needed to do some sacrifice, some contribution towards the energy sector, we could raise money from the energy sector while not putting that burden on Ghanaians to the point at which they were. In this case, the increase in fuel prices, if it comes at all, will not take fuel prices to 16 cedis per liter. So the net effect is that Ghanaians will still benefit. But let's see this as our contribution to the development of Ghana. Let's see it as our contribution to ensuring that we have regular supplies of fuel for the energy sector. Let's see this as our contribution to promote the efficiency of the energy sector. And that is what I will say.
Thank you very much. I've received tons of messages. I'll attempt to do some of them. People buying petrol when government is taxing to pay the debt is bad. For for e-levy, people don't buy anything and they are even taxed. JM will succeed, all right. Thank you. You didn't tell me your name and where you sent your message from. I just want to commend the 3 wise personalities on the program to the president to appoint them to ambassadorial positions. I don't think. I just want to say these 3 personalities can actually market Ghana internationally. My former MP, lawyer Inusa, I'm very proud of you this morning. James K. Saba sent this one. Thank you, James, for your message. My panelists have no interest in becoming ambassadors. Good morning, please. Your production team interrupted with an advert. I think that was a mishap. It has been rectified. Thank you for notifying us. While it is possible to fund government through non-tax revenue sources, the US and European countries have complex economies and social systems that rely heavily on taxation. Ghanaians who are staying in those countries can attest to this. Ghana, as a lower middle income country, a complete shift away from taxes would be a significant challenge and would require a complete overhaul of the current economic and political systems. Therefore, beyond the introduction of this energy tax, I think that fiscal discipline, which involves responsible management of government finances, should be pursued as a key path towards economic stability and growth. The focus should be on controlling government spending, reducing debt, and ensuring a sustainable fiscal position. In my candid opinion, the excessive partisanship in Ghanaian politics, where the narrow interest of political parties overshadow national goals in our discourse, is a major problem that needs to be addressed. Ghana deserves better. Nana Oseo Usufusu sent this one from Abiase in the Bono East region. Thank you, Nana, very well said. This one here says, good morning, Pan-African TV. Kenneth Furiati's refusal to appear before the special prosecutor to be asked questions borders on utter dissipation of our public funds to his cousins and some of the things I can't say, but Ernest Evalaf Kwashi. Unfortunately, this topic is not part of today's conversation. Send other messages. I'll be more than pleased to read for you. And many thanks always for doing the watching. Kucho, from Kucho, this one says, to you all in the studio and the workers of Pan-African TV, may the Almighty Allah sympathize with you or bless you with good health, wealth, and happiness. Happy Eid al-Adha. Thank you very much, Alhaji Said Kucho. Thank you. This one he also says, what Comrade Philip London is saying about Chinese development is true and real. I saw it and felt it. Moving out population onto unsettled land is what the Chinese call island economy. This new settlement is about province of Hainan, designed about 3 decades ago, has been developed into a modern settlement with all potentials and commensurate infrastructure. Agriculture, tourism, and industry, real estate, and road development are the foundations. Everyone has a place of decent abode. The farmer has a desirable abode and means of transport to and from his farm. I'll read this final one. It says, the MPP was putting the lights on at the expense of debts upon debts and unfulfilled promises to pay. MPP never again. Stephen from Kwabenya. Thank you, Stephen. Keep the messages coming. In the next round of messages, I'll attempt to read the ones you have sent via social media platforms on Facebook and on YouTube. Mr. Langdon.
Thank you. Well, this levy that has been imposed is something that it has become necessary to solve a problem. This is there's this debt, heavy debt. It's accumulating on a daily basis, and it has to be retired. It's a problem that no government can run away from. The current government has felt that this is the best way, under the circumstances, to solve the problem. I think where we are right now It is more to do with the management of the situation. Why do I say so? The impression is that the government, through the finance minister, is doing a reasonably good job. Reduce taxes, the dollar is coming, the cedi is appreciating in value. Some prices are beginning to show signs of coming down. Petroleum prices coming down. All these things are to the credit of the government. As to what the government did directly or indirectly or benefited from, at the end of the day, these are the results and the government is benefiting from them. Then comes the situation where there's this problem that has to be solved, this major debt that has to be resolved. Yes, ESLA was collateralized, that money is not available, so the debt is there. Anybody collateralizing ESLA, for me, in principle, is not a problem. If that money was, if that was done, collateralized, a loan was obtained, and that money was used for something that gave us a certain benefits or certain economic return that we ourselves said, okay, this was a very prudent management decision, we would have been happy. But that was done. As I sit here, I'm not too sure exactly what Ghana benefited from the loans that were taken out of that collateralization. I honestly do not know. You see? So at the end of the day, we have this debt facing us and we have to solve it. Now, if you work out in terms of, like my good brother said, we have got the benefit of petroleum prices dropping quite significantly from around the 16s to where they are now, for nearly 5 cedis. And we are even told that there is a likelihood of a further drop. So that is where Ghanaians are. Me, I'm looking forward to hearing, maybe over the weekend, after the weekend, maybe the following week, that there has been another drop. So when the average Ghanaian like me has this expectation, and then they hear that suddenly there is a call for an increase of 1 cedi per litre, it doesn't sit very well. It doesn't sit well. That's why I say this is a management situation. This situation has to be managed if it is to be successful. The Minister of Finance has to get the people on board, explain, and tell the people that, look, we've been able to bring this thing down from 17, 16 to where we are now. We are imposing another 1 cedi per litre. This 1 cedi we are imposing, you might not even notice it because the price is even dropping. You might not even notice it. So bear with us. We have to solve this problem. This money we are putting, this 1 cedi per litre, per our calculations, we expect to make so much in the next 6, 9, 12 months. I expect the finance minister to come out and tell us that, yes, like I said we will be getting, I said 6 months we'll get so much. In actual fact, we got so much. More, plus or minus my expectations. 9 months, we got so much, plus or minus my expectations. This is where we are in liquidating that debt. Then Ghanaians see that you are working for us. It's not just a matter of coming to impose a tax. We are, if you say you are resetting, these are the kind of resets we expect. You are not imposing a tax and just say, I've imposed a tax, whether you like it or not, I've imposed a tax. At the end of the day, you have the numbers in Parliament. If you impose a tax, people can complain and grumble as much as they like, but the tax will go. But where we are, you have to explain and let people appreciate and buy into the idea that, okay, we are going to pay this tax. We are with you on this. It's for our own good. And this is what we expect to see. And then you come out and account to us at these periodic times for us to know that, yes, we impose this tax. This is how far we've done. This is what we've been able to achieve. We can expect to pay this tax for another 1 year. Ghanaians will not complain with you. And Ghanaians know that this is not e-levy. Because e-levy, when the person in the, and I'm telling you, we contested the election, we know how it is. You go to the mobile money vendor and there's somebody sitting there. What is her issue? She received a call, this old lady. Her son, who is working somewhere in another part of Ghana, has told her that he's sending her 20 cedis. She's waiting for the money to come. 20 cedis. For that money to come so she can cash it. She needs to go home and she's going to spend that 20 cedis, 4 cedis, 3 cedis, 2 cedis. She's done the budget for the 20 cedis. So when you put a levy on that money for that woman, you have disorganized her life. So it's not the same. If you put on a 1 cedi on a liter of fuel and you explain it like this to the people and they see that, oh, at the end of the day, I'm not going to feel it so much. Even the transport operators can appreciate that, okay, we see it coming down, and even in spite of this 1 cedi that you've added, there's even the likelihood that the price may even come down again. People will work with you. At the end of the day, let them see that you are solving the problem. When you are solving the problem, next time you come back, there's another problem, and you tell them that this is how I'm going to solve it. The people have faith in you. Right now, hey, the government is enjoying a lot of goodwill. If they don't manage it and they lose it, it will be a disaster. We saw it before. When Nana Akufo-Addo came, look at the goodwill he had. The situation wasn't managed well. It became a total disaster. So, you have an urgent problem. Nobody wants the light to go out. If you explain to the people, this is not e-levy. This is a 1 cedi tax on the liter of fuel. The way we intend to go about this thing, at the end of the day, you will not even feel it. You will not even see it. And for all you know, the price of fuel will continue to drop. So just bear with us. Who won't bear with you? Who won't bear with you? So this is how this situation should be managed. And when it's done like this, and the people see the result, you give them your word and you're able to live up to your word. This is what we all expect as Ghanaians. This is what we expect. An improvement in our lives. I don't know, I haven't heard the law as proposed. I understand it's been passed. I don't know the details of it. I don't know whether it affects kerosene. I don't know if it affects aviation fuel. I've heard about diesel and petrol. I've not heard anything about LPG, so I can't speak for those ones. But I just hope that whatever, it is communicated properly and it is well managed and executed, because Ghanaians are going to sit down. We're not going to take anything for granted this time again. Anything that is happening, Ghanaians are alive to the situation. If you say you're going to do this, let's see how it goes. You know, and see, when you do things like this, this is how the mood in the country is measured. If this situation is handled well, I believe the government will be able to do the job successfully as they expect to, and manage this debt to put it off all of us are next.
Thank you very much.
Well, to start with, I think the point has to be made that taxes and levies, no matter the reason for the imposition, are not pleasant. And everywhere in the world, there has been some apprehension about the imposition of taxes and levies. That's a fact. Mm-hmm. Now, this particular situation is worsened also by sloppy communications from the government. Its communicators have not communicated well and has added to the burden of government. See, when a measure like this is introduced and public servants or members of government who everybody knows don't buy petrol make statements to the effect that, oh, we are ready to sacrifice one city, you know, we'll buy the petrol, we are ready to sacrifice one city for the good of the country, it annoys the population. So bad communications is part of the problem. And then there's also the problem of preparation for the announcement. The government should have known, the Ministry of Finance should have known that its opponents will capitalize on this and make the most of it. So this measure, before its implementation, should have been introduced to the public, it should have been discussed to some extent, and before the announcement, the official announcement itself, people ought to have understood the context within which this levy was being imposed. Now, it hit people with a jolt. And as soon as it was introduced in Parliament, members of the opposition, the minority, decided to make capital out of it. They walked out, created a whole lot of drama and so on, and miseducated the public on the levy. So it has been handled very badly. We must admit that it has been handled very badly. Now, for me, I find something exceedingly interesting. People who were in government, who raised petroleum prices to 16 cedis.
As far as 23 and 20.
Let's keep it at 16, forget the 23. Who raised it to 16 cedis are complaining when measures have been put in place to reduce it by 5 cedis. Incredible. Where is their moral authority? They have no moral authority to be complaining. You understand? They didn't do better. They did worse. So on that basis alone, I'm sitting back and watching these minority MPs, you know, walking out of Parliament and say, what's wrong with these people? What do you do given the opportunity? As a matter of fact, perhaps if they were in government today, the price would have escalated to 30 cedis or more. So they have no moral authority to be making the kinds of statements that they are making today. Besides, this levy would have become completely unnecessary if the previous government had not tinkered with OSLA, the energy recovery debt recovery levy. They wasted it. They used it as collateral to go and obtain loans, and we don't know how those loans were spent. The energy sector debt is growing. In fact, as of yesterday, I'm told that the energy sector debt now has reached the level of 3.1 billion.
3.8.
Ah, well, whatever you know, 3.1, 3.8 billion dollars. That's how.
It's still more than what we wait for the IMF.
That is how much we owe. You understand? In addition to this, government needs at least another 2 billion, close to $2 billion to be able to import the necessary fuels to keep our power plants running. So we have to make a decision. Either to shut down electricity completely so that we don't have electricity, so that industry collapses, so the social life collapses and so on, or some measure is introduced which would make it possible for us to continue to receive electricity.
Thank you.
So we have this minority people complaining about doomsor and then saying that don't take any measure to improve doomsor. How is government supposed to improve this doomsor situation if it doesn't generate resources from somewhere? The important thing is that the resources which are generated to deal with this doomsor matter should not impose further hardship on the people. So a combination of all the measures should lead to the alleviation of hardship. You understand? Petroleum prices are climbing down, and they've gone down by about 5 cedis already. And the speculation is that they could still go down. One, because of the lowering of inflation and the cedi gaining strength. And yesterday, the cedi was trading at 10.3 or so to $1, climbing down from 17 cedis to $1 to a 10.3 to $1. And the speculation is that the cedi's value will continue to strengthen to such an extent that this 1 cedi levy would not lead to an increase in the price of petrol. What are they complaining about? They should come and tell us what they are complaining about. What are they complaining about? What is it that the minority is complaining about? And they've managed to send, some level of disinformation among the people. Well, this morning when I was driving to the studio, I was listening to radio, and truck drivers and taxi drivers were complaining. We've just reduced prices. What are we supposed to do when the price of fuel rises again, and so on? Now, let me make the point very clear that commercial drivers, taxi drivers, and truck drivers are disadvantaged in our society. You should see their living conditions. Some of them cannot make their daily sales. They struggle to make their daily sales. They are constantly being threatened by car owners that they are going to take their vehicles from them. They actually go to Shylock money lenders to borrow money in order to be able to meet their daily sales and so on. So they are a disadvantaged group, and no further hardship should be imposed on commercial drivers. But the point I'm making is that this levy, as explained by the Minister of Finance and all those who were involved in taking the decision, will not lead to exacerbating the hardship of commercial drivers. You understand? To some extent, it will rather help all of us if industry booms. Those who operate the transport sector benefit. They haul all the raw materials and the finished products and so on. It's a benefit to the transport sector. If the power sector improves and industry booms, there's more employment for people, which means that more people will be using public transport and so on. If the power sector develops and doesn't have the kinds of problems which were imposed by the NPP administration and so on, healthcare would improve. It is the benefit of commercial drivers, it is the benefit of passengers and so on. If you get an accident, you are likely to be given the kind of treatment which will save your life and so on. So that's the context within which we have to see this levy. But unfortunately, government communication this time was so very poor, so very poor. Government communication has been poor. The preparations for announcing the measure was not well thought out. It was poor. I don't know why this was considered a secret. It shouldn't have been a secret. This is a matter which should have been debated, and so on. And whatever it is, it has come. And so we must manage it. I fully agree 100% with Alhaji Inusa Fuseni and my brother Philip, that look, after the imposition of this levy, government has a duty to do, and it's not a simple duty. This account ought to be audited regularly to show that it is not being mismanaged. That's very important. The population ought to be convinced that the imposition of this levy has become beneficial for all of us. So the intermittent lights off must stop, and if it stops, it will vindicate this measure. You understand? And as Alhaji Inusa Fuseni said, there has to be a certain level of efficiency in power production and distribution. These huge line losses that we are saddled with should go away. These technical line losses and so on should go away. And there are ways of doing that, you understand? So the levy has been imposed. It is the duty of government to demonstrate that it is beneficial. And it is not difficult to do. To do that demonstration is not a difficult task at all. It's a very easy task. Constant auditing, constant reports about the state of our infrastructural development, constant reports about the production of power and the efficiency that it comes with, and so on. That is what has to be done. And this opposition, minority, demonstrations and walkouts and so on will come to nothing. The people of Ghana if it's managed properly, will come to the realization that this is in their interest and they will embrace it in the long term.
Thank you very much. A few messages, but Honorable, I checked the quantity of fuel, that is diesel and then petrol, that we sell, like the country sells in a day. That amounts to some 10.2, million liters every single day. When I did my calculation, in a year we should be around 4 billion Ghana cedis. And so, and if you look at the projections from the ministry, we are looking at from 4 to 6 billion. That's what we are supposed to accrue annually from this levy.
Are you talking about liters?
Yeah, liters, yes. 10.2 million liters every single day. Yeah. So we should be between 4 to 6 billion Ghana cedis, in a year, and that should,
And also, just on to it. Also, if from the statistics you are giving us right now, if the price is not dropping, then they don't necessarily suggest that there will be a reduction in the quantities. Because if the price goes up, that's when you're likely that people will curtail and the volumes might come down. But if, in spite of this increase, the price is either coming down or being maintained, then I think they can still look forward to these figures.
And then yes, it's true. 10 million liters a day means that we are going to rake in a lot of money. That's why I've not seen the legislation. And that's why people are saying that, well, because we are going to deal with a specific problem within the energy sector, that legislation must necessarily have a sunset clause. So when we rake in the needed amount of money, we must stop it. So I've not seen the legislation yet, but I think that what people are saying makes sense. Gigantic problem, but accountability is required. So, and that's in little with what Comrade Pratt is saying. Let's see everybody, because that's how you move the people of Ghana along. How is the money collected? What is it used for? Is some part of the money going down the drain and what not? Is it promoting inefficiency in the energy sector? If we are able to deal with these matters, Ghanaians will sympathize with government.
Right. I'll do some messages. Good morning to you all.
This is an attempt by the minority to chip away the goodwill of the government. It's an attempt. And that is how it is couched.
Yeah.
Oh, but you promised to take over tax, to reduce taxes, and we are now paying taxes and so on. And this is the strength. But if you look at it very carefully and from a scientific point of view, it then becomes the weakness of Dr. Baumia.
Yes.
This is the game he's been playing for a long time. He's not washing. And he doesn't realize that he's not washing. More sophisticated than that. You understand? Our country is far more sophisticated than that.
Right. To some messages, good morning. It's understandable when people say there should have been consultation before imposing the levy, but I want to say that the Ghanaian should take it easy, because sometimes in emergencies one must take appropriate action before later reporting. I dare say that in recent memory, no government has been more consultative than the NDC government. This is my humble opinion. The focus now should be on prudent and efficient management of the proceeds from the levy, so its purpose can be achieved. Chief Binka from Teshi.
Yes. You can't have too much
Consultation.
Too much consultation.
Yeah.
There's nothing like too much consultation.
If you're governing a country,
There should be much consultation.
consultation is constant. It's not something that you do and say, oh, I've done enough, so I'm not going to continue. Please.
Right. Good morning to you all. Please, I'm appealing to the good people of Ghana to cooperate with the current government to build the Ghana we all want. To pay just 1 cedi for generating our power is nothing. For Amos in Asinfo, so thank you, Amos, for your message. Hi, I'm K from Kufridi. At high time, we told politicians they cannot take us for a ride. Do MPs buy fuel? How much is their salary? How much do they take as ex gratia for 4 years, which a teacher would have to work for over 20 years and would still not be able to get? God is watching. They should use their ex gratia to pay their debt. Okay, that would be even woefully inadequate for the quantum of debt that has been accrued in the energy sector. To some more messages, Sami from Accra says, in all this, Mahama and the NDC must not take security of this government lightly. Both the MPP and the Western powers are never happy when Ghana is developing on its own. Thank you, Sami, for your message. Okay. Good morning. Mahama only came for us to have peace. Ghana's Mahama is at work and you should keep it on. Greet all of your panelists in the studio. I like today's conversation. Okay, thank you very much for your message. Very thoughtful of you. All those speaking against the one Ghana cedi levy, I want to ask, when it's deemed necessary for the drivers and traders to reduce the price of their goods and services and they refused, what did the protesters say then? They should give us a break, right? Thank you for your message. Good morning, Bless. Please, okay, I think that has been corrected. This one here also says, good morning, Bless. 1 liter of fuel was selling at 17 cedis. The current government is now asking the citizens to pay 11 plus 1 cedis for a liter, and people are crying. Hey, Adum Samuel from Cape Coast sent this one. All right. But there appears to be a general consensus that the appreciation of the cedi softens, you know, the blow. Yeah.
And then Mr. Kosu Pradas added, that would have been our second topic. The inflation.
The inflation. We are hard pressed with time.
People are really clearly,
let me do a few more, some 3 more messages, then we wrap up. Kwablavi of Pokwase says, these nurses should have demonstrated against President Akufo-Addo's government because he created all the mess and left. President Akufo-Addo abandoned their allowances, incentives, and refused to employ some of these nurses who are on strike. So these nurses should blame President Akufo-Addo, but not President Mahama. All right, thank you. This one here also says, good morning, Pan-African TV. Mohammed Yaya from Tamale. Honorable Hussein is right about the need to take the issues of corruption serious in this country. Please kindly get me the contact of Kwame Osudan, so I want to take part in the Oral Must Work initiative. All right, thank you for your message. Good morning, Bless. Mubarak from he has decided to embark on an Oral Must Work initiative. They know about it because he said it on this show. So, good morning, Bless. Mubarak from the UK. It's simple. The NDC should just arrest all the MPP members on the ECG board. All right. They are responsible for this new tax for energy. All right, thank you. Please do not call the text line. Good morning to your very intelligent panelists. In a nutshell, about the 1 cedi levy, accountability is needed.